Okay, it's been a long time since I've done a live stream combat tutorial for Dungeons and Dragons, but I thought it was time to get off my laurels and actually give it a go. I'm not very fond of doing these, particularly if I'm trying to control a lot of characters, so if I make a few mistakes along the way, I do apologise. This is live, it's not pre-recorded, and there will be an opportunity to ask questions. Now, I will put the start time down in the description so you can get past all of my waffle and setup and just allowing people to get into the room. I will open it up near the end of the live stream to answer any questions or have a discussion with you about anything that you want to. So feel free to do that. That is definitely going to be an option. I'm just making sure the sound is coming through. It seems to be working all good. Just doing a quick refresh. Okay, all right, so I can pop out the earplugs and we'll go into this. Now, this is probably going to take me, these usually take quite a long time. Bear with me, this is really for beginners. I wouldn't say this is for somebody who's advanced. Anyway, let us get started, shall we? Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons 5e, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a combat tutorial. This is a basic look at how combat is run by a player and a dungeon master. And for today, I have selected the Owlbear, or the Owlbear. In this case, I'm going to set it up. There is an owlbear who has been feeding in the local wilderness, and he's basically eaten everything. There's nothing left to actually eat. So he's wandered into town and caused untold strife, smashed through the village fortification walls and scared off the local sort of villagers or peasants. And fortunately for us, there are a group of adventurers or heroes or whatever you want to call them who are close by. So the walls are smashed down. There are people, men and women, running and screaming all over the place. Ah! And to the rescue come 4 individuals. Now, I know the picture shows you 6, is it 6 individuals? I believe it's 6. I'm only going to be using 4 of those particular types of characters in this demonstration. Otherwise, it's going to get completely unwieldy. So don't worry, we are going to be using dice, maps and miniatures. That is the whole point of this, so don't freak out if you thought I was going to do this. I have selected for today to use the Barbarian, the Rogue, the Cleric and the Wizard. They're all going to be at level 1, so it's easier for me to actually run through the combat. It'll be a lot quicker and faster. It might not necessarily turn out quite the way you were expecting, but that's what we're going to do. You can find all of the pre-made character sheets for this video on the official Dungeons and Dragons website if you're interested and want to check the numbers and just see sort of what was taking place. That's all there if you want to go and check it for yourself. Okay, so here is our opening scene. As you can see, things are developing, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll initiative for all of the characters and the monster. So we're going to get ourselves a 20-sided dice. In this case, we've got a 20-sided dice, and we're going to roll initiative for each single one of them. Now, we'll start off with the Owlbear. Now, the Owlbear has initiative modifier of, I believe it is a +1 for the Owlbear, if I remember right. Your dexterity modifier on the monster stat block for this. So the Owlbear is a +1, and we're going to roll a 20-sided dice. So I rolled an 11, so 1 plus 11 equals 12 for our Owlbear, and that is our first initiative roll determined. I'll just switch that over there so you can see. Now we're going to do the next one. On our list of individuals and characters we need to deal with, there is the Cleric. Now the Cleric's not going to do too well with this, unfortunately. It's just one of those things. Clerics aren't great because if you have a low dexterity modifier, which this one does, it's like a -1. So for the Cleric, we got a -1, and we roll our 20-sided dice. I rolled a 9. So -1 and 9, or 1 minus, or 9 minus 1 is going to be 8. So that's not great. Cleric. So we'll just switch that over so you can see the numbers. Now, if you see me sort of flicking back and forth, there's a lot of things going on in the background while I do this. Otherwise, I could never keep up with it all. Okay, so that's why it might be taking just a little bit of time to go from one thing to the next. Okay, so now that we've done the cleric, let's do the next one on our list, and I believe we'll do the barbarian, since I selected a barbarian for today. The barbarian has an initiative modifier of +2. So we get 2 plus whatever we roll on a 20-sided dice to determine initiative. Now, there was no surprise, you might have noticed. I didn't do any sort of surprise round because I didn't think it was appropriate. Roll a 2 on the barbarian, so 2 plus 2 is going to be 4. That's not great. So we'll just switch that one over so you can see my numbers. There we go. It's like a juggling act. When will he make a mistake? The question is not when, but if. No, it's not if, it's definitely going to happen. Only a matter of time. Okay, so the rogue. Let's roll for the rogue. The rogue's got a pretty good initiative. I believe it's a +3. So our rogue has a +3. And we roll our 20-sided dice. And we're going to add a 5 to that 3. So that's 5 plus 3 equals 8. La-da, just like so, and we'll flick that one out. We've done the barbarian already. We've got our rogue, who is on 8. Blimey. There's got to be an easier way to do this. Can you imagine if you were dungeon mastering and had to actually do all of this yourself, one individual after another? It would drive you nuts. I know it would drive me nuts. Okay, now we're on to the wizard. Taking our wizard. Now, wizard's got a really high dexterity modifier. This is a +3. Roll a 20-sided dice. I got a 16. So 3 plus 16 is 19, which is pretty good. And switch that over so you can see that now. Ta-da! And I'll make a note of that so I don't lose track of where I am at in terms. Now, I've got to put them all into order. Just because I've rolled initiative for everybody doesn't mean that I am done. I actually have to order them. So taking our list of characters and monster, we need to place them into order so we know who is going to go first and who is going to go last. Because the higher the initiative, the more likely you are to go first. The lower the initiative, more likely you're going to go last. So starting off with the highest initiative, I believe, is our wizard at 19. Did I get it right? Yes, 19. Wizard. So that's at the top. One wizard. And then the next one, which is the 19, I'll write that there. Next one after that would be the Owlbear, or our monster. And that is a 12. Followed by that, we've got 2 characters who are on initiative of 8. That's the cleric and the rogue. So the players who are running those characters can decide amongst themselves who is going to get to go first. Now, in the past, you might have rolled some sort of an extra dice, like a 20-sided dice, and that would have been fine. But you don't have to worry about doing that now. Sometimes it was like a roll-off between dice, or whoever had the highest dexterity modifier. None of that really matters in this case. So instead, you just decide. Because I think that's actually a much smarter way of operating. Otherwise we used to have readied actions and holding actions and all that sort of stuff. So I like this rule, it's a good one. So in this case, we're going to go with, I really want the cleric to be able to go before the rogue. That's hopefully so the cleric gets a chance to use bless. So we're going to go with the cleric. That would probably be the discussion at my table. So cleric is on 8, goes next, followed by the rogue, who's also on 8, who will go next. And then last, unfortunately for us, is the barbarian, who is likely to be in the front. So that's not really a great situation. Now, any smart group, if they were facing up against an owlbear at level 1, they would probably just run and hope that it wouldn't chase them down, which unfortunately it's got 40 feet, so it's probably going to just chase them down, or throw a bit of meat behind you as you flee. That's always another option for those of you who weren't thinking that there was any way out of this. There is certainly a way out of this, but it's not interesting if I do it that way. certainly that would have been my choice, is grab a bit of food or rations out of my backpack as an interaction, hurl it in front of the owlbear and use my movement, since hurling it's probably an action, and then using my movement to just boot it out of there and get clear of that horrible monster. But we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to play this out and see what happens. Now, for a wizard to try to do anything significant when they are at the top of the initiative, which in this case they certainly are, would be kind of foolish. If the wizard was to try and move forward and use something like Burning Hands, which it does have access to, would seem foolish. But what we can do, since it's a 15-foot cone, is we can move forward, stay out of its reach, and then try to hit it and cause as much damage to this thing as possible, and then move back before it can swipe us and cause us to wind up being really basically cremated. So that's essentially what we're going to do. I'm going to move my wizard up. Okay, so 15 foot. I can do it from any square, so if I do it this way, it'll miss the barbarian and just push out my cone to target, and that should allow us to actually roll some dice. Now, for this particular effect, you are shooting out from your fingertips flames in a 15-foot cone. They have to make a dexterity saving throw, so the dexterity saving throw for our owlbear, I believe, is only going to be a +1. I don't think it's got anything special, so that's a +1 for the owlbear, and we roll a 20-sided dice, and the DC that the owlbear has to succeed at is going to be I believe it's a 13 for this particular spell. And I'll just flick that over so I can see and check. Yes, it is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll the dice. I'll just place that there in a second. I got a 6. 6 is not great on the owlbear's part, so 6 + 1 is 7. So the owlbear needed to get equal to or greater than the 13 for the wizard's Burning Hands. Otherwise, it takes full damage. And that's how the spell reads. If the creature had saved, it would have only taken half damage. So for this particular spell, we're looking at 3 6-sided dice. So we'll get rid of that dice for a second, and we'll grab some 6-sided dice. There's one over here, there's another one there, and there's another one here. Okay. Now that we've done that, I'm going to take this away and I'm going to roll some damage and give you the outcome of that. So this is how many hit points this owlbear is going to take, which is quite high by the looks. It looks like I rolled pretty well. It's 15, I believe. I'll just make a note of that for you so you can see it. Oops. It's one of the things with wiping off on a whiteboard. Sometimes you don't quite clear off everything. So Burning Hands. Burning hands, burning hands. Do you really want your hands to burn? Of course you do, because it's super cool, super cool. So 4 + 6 + 5 that's a grand total of a 15. 15 with the Burning Hands. Now the hit points on our owlbear are 59. It's got a lot of hit points. So we're going to deduct from that 15. So that should come out at 44. So 49 minus 15 is 44. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I got it wrong. And that is the wizard's turn. Now the wizard doesn't need to finish there. It can decide to move further away now that it's done its spell and burnt it. And that's really the only first level spell this wizard has. Already cast Mage Armor at the beginning of the day, because that's the smart thing to do, because if you are a smart mage, you make sure you have a higher armor class by using Mage Armor. Alright, so we're going to move back. I moved 5 up here, that's 10, 15, and I'm going to move back just a little bit more. No, we'll just stay there. That's good enough. That's good enough. Hopefully it can't get any closer than that. Okay. So I'll move the Burning Hands out of the way, and now we're on to the owlbear, and this is going to get really interesting, because the owlbear's got quite a lot of attacks, and it can do a lot of damage really, really quickly. So, taking our dice, we're going to move up. Now, because the owlbear's got a lot, big speed, we're going to go for both creatures. We can go for one, but I'm going to just go. It squeaks. These things squeak. There are squeakers, it's essentially. So we're going to go with the barbarian first, because The Barbarian's the one that's essentially in the front, although the small one looks tasty, doesn't it? We could just go for the Rogue and just eat the Rogue first. Okay, so for our attack with our Owlbear, it has 2 attacks, multi-attack. The Owlbear makes 2 attacks, one with its beak and one with the claws. So what I think I will do is I'm going to use the beak to attack our little fella, the Rogue. So we're going to be using a plus. Ooh, where's the modifier for that? It's a +7. It's not good. It's bad. Trust me, that's not good at all. Beak. So 1 beak, and it is a +7, and we roll a 20-sided dice, which I'll do right now. I rolled a 4. It's not very high. 7 plus 4 is 11. So that's the attack roll. There's probably no point making a damage roll because the armor class of our Rogue is going to be significantly higher than 11. You have to get equal to or greater than the armor class of the creature. So our Rogue has an armor class of 14. So 11's not equal to or greater than, so the beak is going to miss. Never mind, next time. What we will do is we're going to follow up, since the beak didn't get through, we're going to try using the claws on the bigger, more brutal individual, the large Barbarian. So we'll make our attack with our claw, and pardon me, so this is a claw attack, and the claw attack is also a +7 to hit. A lot of damage if we do this. So roll our 20-sided dice to make our attack with our Owlbear on the Barbarian. I rolled a 4. Man, it's like this dice just wants to keep rolling 4s. So 7 plus 4 is 11. So the claw might actually miss. The characters will live another day, or at least another round. So the armor class for our Barbarian is a grand total of 14 with unarmored defense. So it's not equal to or greater than, so it doesn't hit the Barbarian. Good news, good news. It means they get to stick around just a little bit longer. All right, so let's move this off. That was the Owlbear. We've moved that one down, so move this down again. Probably not going to be able to do it quite that way, but we'll see how we go. All right, so our Cleric. What is our Cleric going to do? Well, I had been holding off and hoping I would get a chance to use something like Bless, and this is a good time to use Bless, so I'm going to use it now. Now, I want to select individuals who are going to be making attack rolls or having to make a saving throw. So I think the smartest thing is to go with the Rogue, the Barbarian, and our Wizard is probably going to be using something that requires some sort of attack roll. So based on the spells that I know that they have. Probably going to wind up being a Firebolt, since there's really nothing else that left for the Wizard to do. And we want to make sure we stay out of reach of this creature, because this thing could mess us up and we might need to bring somebody back up if they wind up getting trounced. So instead of being here, we're going to move back just a little bit more, and we're going to cast Bless on these 3 individuals. What this means is every time they make an attack or a saving throw, they get to add a 4-sided dice to that attack roll or that saving throw. It's a very good spell. It is a no-brainer for any kind of cleric to use. I always think it's probably the most sensible spell to use whenever you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, so that is what we need to remember. Okay, cool. Now, there we go. So make sure, if you're in the chat and I don't use that dice, that I do. Otherwise, you know, the player's characters are losing out. Okay, so the clerics cast the spell as an action, moved. There's no bonus action to worry about right now. Nobody's actually sort of been injured other than the Owlbear, so we don't need to worry about that. Down to the Rogue. Amazingly, the Rogue might actually get a chance to do something. Now, the Rogue has this thing called Sneak Attack. Now, Sneak Attack works if you have advantage. In this case, we don't have advantage on our attack. It doesn't work if you have disadvantage, but doesn't matter, because there's got to be at least one ally within 5 feet of the target we are attacking. If we can do that, that means we get our sneak attack. So it's either advantage or an ally within 5 feet of the target we are attacking. And there is. We've got the Barbarian right there. So we're going to get to have our sneak attack. So that means when we're rolling our dice for damage, we need to remember, going to get a 6-sided dice plus whatever the other weapon we have. I'm going to pull out a short sword. I don't want to pull out any other weapons because that would use up my action. I only get one attack as a rogue, so it's sort of the one thing you want to do is not use up that action doing something else until you can get your cunning action in play. Okay, so what does the rogue do? Let's have a look. We have a couple of options. We have a short sword, we have a dagger. As I said, we're going to go with the short sword. So that's a +5, and we roll a 20-sided dice. And I got a 16, so that's awesome. Okay, good news. So 5 plus 16 is a grand total of 21, and that is the short sword against our Owlbear. Now I can pretty much guarantee you, if there is an Owlbear with an armor class of 21, just pack up and go home, because it's not going to go well for you. So here we go. Here is the maths. There it is. Now remember, I also, when I was making the attack roll, I should have rolled that 4-sided dice, which means the true number shouldn't be 21. It's more like, because I rolled a 4 on this 4-sided dice, that's actually 25. So we'll amend that, since I didn't actually incorporate it. I'm going to make sure I keep rolling those dice otherwise. Okay, so +4 comes to 25. So that was the attack roll. There we go. Almost forgot it. I knew I would. There's too many things going on. Okay, so let's make some attacks. We've got sneak attack, so that's a 6-sided dice. How much damage do we get to do with our short sword? Well, we actually get to use a 6-sided dice as well for that. And we're going to add +3. So 2 6-sided dice, one for the sneak attack, one for the short sword, and add +3. So that's going to be our damage for this particular attack. Attack's damage. We've done the attack roll, we're doing the attack damage now. So rub that out, and we'll roll these dice. What do we got here? We've got a 2 plus a 5 plus the dexterity modifier for our rogue, for the short sword, which is a 3, comes to a grand total of 10. So that's 10 damage. 10 piercing damage on the Owlbear. The Owlbear will be taking some damage, and so he stabs it in. He finds a nice little spot between the feathers, and again, you can hear it go, ah! Just making a bit of a squawker. It's a squawker. All right, so 44 hit points on the Owlbear. Subtract 10 is now 34. And yet the players still live. How is that possible? Is this not a challenge rating 3 monster? This is one of the things I always like to point out to people. They always assume that the monster being a couple of challenge ratings higher than normal means that it's all overgrover. It's not necessarily all overgrover. Now the rogue can position itself or move into a different location. I'm going to have the rogue try to block so the thing doesn't try to squeeze between here, since it hasn't thought about doing that yet, but it might. I'm going to just block it off. We've got a well over here, and hopefully that'll protect our casters at the back, who are going to be really important to us if we want to survive. Okay, now it's barbarian time. Let's get fancy with the barbarian over here. Now the barbarian has a great sword. Oh, I know what you're thinking. Great swords mean a lot of damage. So remember, we are still blessed, so we get the 20-sided dice for the attack roll. The bless gives us a 4-sided dice for the attack roll, and our great sword. Whoops. I started writing sword rather than great. It's got to be a great sword, not just a normal sword, right? Great sword. Great sword. And our modifier for the barbarian, for the great sword, is a 5, plus whatever we roll with these 2 dice, and we see if we hit this thing and hurt it badly. Because last time we certainly hurt it really badly. Okay. Ooh, well, this could be a bit problematic. So, this is a 3. And that 4-sided dice rolled a 4 again. So that means we've got a grand total of, oh, it's going to be so close. 5, 3 is 8, plus 4 is 12. Oh, you're not going to like the sound of this. Now, one of the things I should have said is I should have declared that I'm raging. So I'm going to say I'm raging. Otherwise, it's not quite as much fun. You want to be raging so you've got your damage resistance up, just in case you get attacked and hit this time. We want that damage resistance. Otherwise, our barbarian might wind up very, very dead. Okay, so we've done that. Unfortunately, if you see the maths here, 5, 3, 4, and comes to a grand total of 12. armor class for the Owlbear is a 13. So the Barbarian just misses, even with the Bless going. It was so close, so close. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. The Barbarian's going to stay put. It's now blocking, it's raging, she's raging, so she's got her damage resistance in play, and she's got the ability to do even more damage when she does finally strike with the Great Sword. Okay, moving on. Now we're back to the top of the initiative round. That's our Wizard. Now our Wizard is going to take this opportunity to cast a spell. So I am not going to be doing anything stupid like getting up close. What I will do is I'm going to use my Wizard and cast, since I've got no more level 1 spells, I've already used Mage Armor, I've used Burning Hands, I'm going to go with a tried and true, I believe it's Firebolt. Firebolt's the trick for me, so we're going to use that. So this is going to give us a 1d10 fire, 1d10 dice roll for fire damage, but we need to hit the target first. Remember, 20-sided dice, 4-sided dice for the Bless, and this is Firebolt for the Wizard. 1 Firebolt. One of my favourite spells is definitely going to be Firebolt. I don't know how to say it, but honestly, it is. It's always been one of my favourite spells. I just like to burn things. Okay, so the modifier for attacking is a +5 for this Wizard. So we'll roll both of these dice and see what we get. Okay, so I didn't roll very well. It's not good at all. And also we're dealing with cover because there's individuals in the way of a large creature. I'm going to apply cover of +2. I know I'm cruel. Right, 4 on the 20-sided dice, a 3 on the 4-sided dice, comes to 5, 4, 9, 12. So again, this is going to go wide because the armor class of this creature right now is 15 because of the individuals in the way. And I only rolled a 12, and even if there wasn't any cover, still wouldn't have hit. So, anyway, it's alright. It's not over yet. The Owlbear is going to get to have its turn. I'm going to leave the Wizard where it is for now, although it is very tempting to move back just a little bit, because I feel like things might get out of control very, very quickly, or move into a better location. I feel like those people in the front are actually acting as a block, so we won't do that. We'll stay put. Okay. Right, so let's move on. We're on round 2. We've done the Wizard. Let's do our Owlbear. Now, Owlbear has 2 attacks, as I said before. It does not get Bless. Thankfully for that, it has to roll just the 20-sided dice for its attack rolls. Nothing else. Okay. All right, so let's start off with the beak. I'm going to beak the rogue. Now, for those of you who are wondering why I'm not describing everything, trust me, I've got enough going on as it is. I'm playing like 4 characters, and I'm also playing like a monster. So for me to be doing, little descriptive stuff and bits and pieces in there, that's what I would do with my monster. But my monster hasn't really done anything. So far, my Owlbear has done diddly squat. Now, it's already taken quite a lot of damage. It is almost at half hit points, but I'm not going to back off just yet because this is just far too much fun. So let's start off with the beak. Now our beak has a 7 modifier for attack, and we roll our 20-sided dice. I rolled a 14, and we're going to beak the rogue. That is a 7 plus 14 is a 21. Now 21 is greater than the armor class of our poor rogue. Our rogue, unfortunately, is not that well armored. In fact, I think if I remember right, the rogue's sitting at about, where is it? Yep, so 14, leather armor. So, we definitely hit the rogue. That means we're definitely going to do some damage. Now, one of the things with this particular character, this monster, it's got an average on the stat block. Now, the number just past the attack roll, just where the brackets are, that first number there represents the average damage. Now, the average damage that I can do with this particular monster is 10. Or I can roll damage if I wanted to, which is 1d10 plus 5, which sounds awful. Now, for those of you who don't worry about rolling damage, then that's fine. I'm going to roll the damage. I don't normally do that. Normally, I would just take the standard damage that's the average, because it saves a lot of time. But as you guys are probably learning this, we need to make sure we get it right. Okay, so we need to get ourselves a, where is it? It is a 10-sided dice, 10-sided dice, yep, there, over here somewhere. Find it, pick it up, that one, there, right. 10-sided dice, we'll roll that, we're going to add 5. Okay, so that's 5 plus 3 is going to equal 8. That's how much damage the beak did on the rogue. Okay, so how many hit points does the rogue have? Well, unfortunately for the rogue, it actually has 8 hit points. So if you drop to 0 hit points, you fall unconscious, and the rogue is about to do that right now. You're not dead, but you are dying. So one rogue goes down, and we'll move that particular rogue to 0 hit points. You will have to make death-dying saves at some point, but not just yet. Hit points 8. Well, no, why did I say 8? No, it's not 8. The rogue has got 9 hit points. And it did... There we go. That's all right. We're good. We're good. We're still on 1 hit point. Get back up, rogue. Oh, I was looking at something else. That's what it is. Oh, don't panic. Don't panic. Now, you might have noticed I rolled below average. This is one of the reasons why I don't roll damage, because I always find I roll so low with my damage that I'm better off to use the average anyway. Okay, all right, let's move on. We're going to go with our claw against the barbarian, who's been whacking away at it as well. So let's just rub this out, since our owlbear is trying to go to town. One owlbear claw. The attack modifier for this thing is a 7 plus whatever we roll on the 20-sided dice. So let's claw the barbarian. All right, so I got a 12 plus 7 is 19. Okay, so 19 is pretty good. 19 means we're definitely going to hit the barbarian. The barbarian's going to get struck for sure, absolutely. No doubt about it. So how much damage do we do? Because our barbarian only has an armor class of 14 and 19 is equal to or greater than. So how much damage do we do? Well, we're going to calculate that because I believe it is 2 8-sided dice plus 5. So we'll get an 8-sided dice, where is it? 1, and another one over here. And we'll grab our little whiteboard and bring it back over here so I can rub things out. Now, I know you're worrying. You're thinking, okay, rest in peace, Mr. Barbarian. But remember, Barbarian is raging. And all you need to do to maintain your Barbarian rage is to make sure you keep making attacks or you take damage. We made an attack, so it doesn't matter about anything else. Even if you don't hit the target, it doesn't matter as long as you make the attack. Okay, so let's do the claw damage for the barbarian. Rolling these dice. What do I get? So I got a 6 plus a 2, and the modifier that I add is a 5. We add that all up, so that's 6, 8, 13. 13 damage. Now, here's the thing. Our barbarian is now currently resistant to slashing, bludgeoning, and piercing damage, because that's one of the benefits of having your rage, is you are resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. And this doesn't change. Even if it was a magic weapon, it would have made no difference. So we only take half. When you're resistant, you only take half of the damage. So instead of taking 13, we're going to divide that by 2. And we round down, so half of 13 comes to, I believe it's 6.5, so it's going to be 6 points of damage for our barbarian. And that means the barbarian's still in the fight. That's right, still in the fight. So 14 hit points, down 6, comes to 8. So currently on 8 hit points. And still alive. I know what you were thinking. You were thinking it's all over Grover, but it's not all over Grover. She's all good. She's all good. Okay. So that's the owlbear. The owlbear is not going to move anywhere else. What we will do is we will move down to the cleric. Now, a cleric can take this opportunity to cast a spell and try to keep somebody back in the fight. Or bring them back into the fight later on if necessary. Our rogue is really badly hit. If the rogue takes another blow like that, chances are the rogue is going to go down. And it's also possible the rogue could be instantly killed. So we don't want that to happen. So what our cleric's going to do, since they've only used one of their level 1 spells, I'm going to move up. We're going to touch our rogue, and we're going to cast what's called Cure Wounds. It's a very, very good spell. It's a touch range, it's instantaneous, and we get to use a 8-sided dice. We get to add our spell casting modifier to this, and because this is I believe it's a life cleric, we get to use preserve life, which means we get to add another 2 to whatever we get in terms of healing. So we're going to do that. So this is Cure Wounds, ba ba ba, and we're going to add 2 for preserve life, and we're going to get to add our spell casting modifier. And if this cleric has been built correctly, it should have a spell casting modifier of a +3. Well, thank God for that. Wisdom is +3, so that's good news. And then we'll roll our 8-sided dice. So I got a 2. It's not great. I know. What is it with me and 2s? I roll really low. It's terrible. We don't yet get to use our bless on this. It only applies to attack rolls and saving throws. Nothing to do with you using Cure Wounds. Okay, so 2, 3, 4, 7. So that's 7 hit points back from the Cure Wounds. It's good to be a life cleric. It's good to be a life cleric. Okay, so we'll adjust the hit points for our rogue, who's no longer on 1 hit point. So 1 plus 7 comes to a grand total of 8. We're now on 8 hit points. Doesn't put us out of the. It's not like we're out of danger. The rogue is still potentially in danger. Now, they're all making lots of noise and trying to scare the owlbear off and fight it off, but it's still trying to come at them. It hasn't taken enough damage to get the message that it should just go somewhere else. So we'll just get rid of this. And our cleric's going to stay put for now where they are. Oh no, we'll move it back actually. That'll allow us to sort of maneuver around and shift things, particularly if the other characters want to move backward and you don't have somebody standing right. That's one of the things I really disliked, is when somebody's playing a game and they're playing a character and they insist on standing directly behind you when you're in the front line. It's not very helpful because you want to be able to move backward when you need to move backward, and them being there actually just blocks everything up. So give them a bit of space, right? Give them a bit of space. Okay, so cleric is done. Our rogue will take their turn. So this time we're going to get really fancy. We've got our short sword out. We're going to use our interaction and pull out our dagger as well. That's going to allow us to use what's called 2-weapon fighting. I've shown this to people before. We still have bless in play because bless lasts a long time, which is awesome news. We also have an opportunity to use our sneak attack damage. You remember that sneak attack damage we were using before? Well, we still get to use it because there is an ally within 5 feet who is not unconscious. Thankfully for that, the barbarian did not go down, and neither did the rogue. So we're going to start off with the short sword attack. So short sword, and we're going to roll our dice. We're adding to this, I believe it is a +5 for our rogue. I think most characters at level 1 should have a +5 to their attack rolls. Okay, so roll the dice with bless. So damage, not damage, 20-sided dice, the attack roll. The 4-sided dice is the bless. Okay, really good. So the bless was a 1, and the 20-sided dice was a 19. So we're pretty sure we've got equal to or greater than what we needed. That's going to come to a 25 to hit with the short sword. Isn't that wonderful? That means we definitely got greater than or equal to the armor class of the owlbear. Only got an armor class of 13. So we hit. Good news. All right, let's get rid of these dice for now and select the dice we need for our short sword attack. So short sword, sneak attack damage, and we're going to add 3 to that. So we'll grab this again and rub it out. Rub-a-dub-a-dub-dub, rub-a-dub-dub, dub-a-dub-dub-dub. So we now, did I roll the dice? I haven't rolled the dice yet. I should roll the dice. It'd be helpful if I did right. So let's roll the dice. Let's see what damage we get from this thing. So sneak attack was 4. The weapon was a 2, and then we're going to add our 3, and we get a grand total that's 4, 6, 9. So that's 9 hit points with our sneak attack. Isn't that wonderful? That's going to hurt the creature a lot. So, stabs that little short sword into its underneath its arm and gets it real good. So we're going to deduct. So 34 hit points on the owlbear is now down by 9. So that is 25, I believe. 25. There we go. So it's looking really hurt now. And you can see, it's probably feeling like it's time to leave. But it hasn't yet because it's not its turn. This is all happening like in 6 seconds, right? Every time you take a round, it's like 6 seconds mucking around. But good news for the rogue is it can also make it's done its short sword attack, but it's got a dagger in the other hand, so we're going to use 2-weapon fighting and make another attack. We get to use our bless again, just as before. So roll those dice. And, oh, I'm going to keep rubbing things out. Rub and move, rub and move. So 1 dagger. Now with 2-weapon fighting at level 1, unless you have a special class feature or you've taken the feat, the damage that you're going to do is going to be reduced. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So the dagger is a +5 for the attack roll. I rolled a 2 on the bless dice, and I got a 7 on the attack dice. That's going to come to a grand total of, maths is going to be hard today, 14. 14, good news. 14 is equal to or greater than the armor class of the owlbear, which has only got a 13, so we hit the target. That bless really makes a big difference. You can see how effective it is. Okay, so now we've got to do some damage. Now we do not get to apply our sneak attack damage again. I know people are thinking, yeah, but I don't understand. You only get to apply sneak attack damage once per turn. Okay? That does mean that you can apply sneak attack damage on a reaction, but this is the same turn. Okay? So we're only going to get to use the damage dice, and there's no modifier. So you don't get to use a modifier for this. Because we're not skilled at 2-weapon fighting, but we are using 2-weapon fighting. So whatever I roll on the 4-sided dice is all I do in terms of damage. I rolled a 4. That's it. It's pretty good considering it's a 4-sided dice. So no attack, no damage modifier because we're not skilled at 2-weapon fighting. Therefore we can't apply it. So, but 4 hit points on the owlbear is pretty good. It's reduced at 25, less 4, it goes down to 21. And it's looking really, really sad now. It made the fatal mistake of showing up in this town, didn't it? Okay, so I'll just rub this out. And here we go. We're going down to, now the rogue's going to stay put. It's done its attack, done pretty well actually. And now we're going to use our barbarian. Our barbarian is going to try to swing with that great sword. That great sword is... Really, the great sword hasn't been quite that great. But we're hoping for a big damage deal sometime soon. So let's start off with the attack roll. Remember, 20-sided dice. Bless is still in place. And we get a modifier for our great sword of +5. So, pardon me. We'll roll both dice, and I got a 16, and I add, also the bless has got a 4 on that dice. It's going to come to 25, which is pretty good. So 25 is equal to or greater than the armor class of our owlbear, which has only got a 13, so we're definitely going to hit the target. That means we get to start rolling damage. It's about time, right? It's about time. Now this is the great thing. When you're raging, you do more damage. You don't just have resistance to taking damage, you also do more damage. And that's the sort of thing we want, right? We want to be doing more damage rather than less damage. Less damage is not good. So we get 2 6-sided dice for our weapon. And we're going to be adding, instead of a +3 for our strength modifier for the barbarian, and it's got a strength of 16 and a modifier of 3, we're raging, so we get an extra +2. So it's going to be +5 for the damage that we add to the dice roll. Okay? Alright, so we're just going to grab this, rub this out. Let's do some dice rolling and see what we get. Okay, so it's not too bad. We get a 4, and we get a 3, and we add 5 for the rage. And it comes out at a grand total of 9, 12. That's 12. slashing on the owlbear. The owlbear is going to take a lot of punishment. Oh, that blade comes down hard. So 21 less 12. Quick maths, 9. So it's now currently on 9 hit points. Who would have guessed that 4 level 1 characters would be able to fight off an owlbear? It could, of course, been rolled and worked out a lot worse than this, but it hasn't so far. Now the barbarian's going to stay put. Could move, but it's trying to block and keep the others protected, like our wizard and our cleric. Okay. So we're now going to move up to the top of the initiative. It's the wizard's turn. The owlbear might still get a chance to do something, but you never know. So we're going to go with a simple old firebolt. Same as before, firebolt. And remember, 20-sided dice, and our blessed, our 4-sided dice, since the spell is still in effect. And we're going to be using a modifier of +5 for our firebolt. So 5 plus whatever we roll on these dice. And I rolled pretty bad. That's pretty bad. It's not great at all. So 4 on the 20-sided dice and a 4 on the 4-sided dice. Comes out at a grand total of 13. Now I've applied cover to this creature. Okay, this creature I've applied cover because there are individuals standing in front. Your dungeon master might not use cover. It's fine. Some people use cover, some people don't use cover. It's really up to you. In terms of the rules and in terms of cover can change dependent on sort of how much of the creature is covered. So half cover, you're covering half the creature. You could argue that the creature is not half covered and it's less than that, but I'm still going to apply the cover. So unfortunately, since the armor class of our owlbear is a 13 plus the plus 2 because of the cover from the rogue and the barbarian standing in the way, we're going to apply that. That's a armor class of 15. The attack is not equal to or greater than, so it's going to miss. The firebolt goes wide. Well, at least you didn't hit your teammates. Okay, it is now down to the owlbear. What is the owlbear going to do? Well, I think a sensible creature like this, even though it might be incredibly ravenous and hungry and quite aggressive predator, is going to make the sensible decision to boot it out of there. So we're going to use what's called a disengage. Disengage is not always the best way to escape from a location, but in this case I think the creature's going to just sort of move the 40 feet. So we're using our movement, we use our action to disengage. That means there's no attacks of opportunity on the creature as it's fleeing, and it's going to try to leave town. So turning around, we go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. And it is making its way out of town because it's had quite enough. And that is it. Very, very simple. So hopefully you found this useful or helpful. Now I could have the players' characters hunt it down or shoot it from afar and finish the creature off if they wanted to. It's really completely up to you. If your party is that way inclined, they can, or they can. There's no reason why a dungeon master can't award experience points for driving off a creature rather than just killing the creature. Just a point. Okay, so if you have any questions, any feedback, use the comments section. Make sure to use the comments section. I have videos for combat tutorials, many of them, so you're welcome to go and check them out. I have player and dungeon master videos, so have a look at those. I have a Patreon page if you want to support the channel. I have affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon if you want to check them out. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be occasionally notified by YouTube if you're incredibly lucky and it actually works. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Like that. Okay, I'm not gone. I will be back. I just need a drink of water. Well, there's a reason why I don't do these as often as I normally would. One, because there's no way of doing a combat tutorial in a short space of time when you're doing all of it yourself. There are times when it would help if there are other people around, but I'm not in that position. And if you're explaining everything, it always takes a lot more time as well. That's the reality. So if anybody decides to say, how come you can't show me faster? I will say to you, if you can do it faster, make a video and leave me be. Okay, all right, let's go and have a look at the chat and see who's here and if there are any questions. Make sure, if you want to be answered, to use hashtag question so I see the question. And as always, if you super chat me, then I will definitely answer your question. But I normally answer everybody's questions anyway. Okay. Hello, Matt. How's it going? I watched your crystal dice being made. Ah, right. Interesting. I've always enjoyed the owlbear creature. Very classic monster. Yeah, it's one of those creatures that's a bit odd, right? I mean, to be fair, when you look at an owlbear, it's sort of like a mutant between a bear and an owl, and people love it. But it's still a very odd creature, and it's very much a predator, so it will hunt you down if it really wants to. I don't know that it necessarily would target, in a normal circumstance, a group of individuals, not unless it was taking its mate with it, and it was hunting in a group of at least 2 or 3. Then maybe taking on a group of adventurers would make sense. But then again, how often has an owlbear come across somebody as powerful as these individuals here that they have faced today? It's probably not very often. 2 Terra 2, the accent is legendary. Well, thank you very much. I think a lot of people don't like my accent, but there's nothing you can do about it. Everybody has one. Marcus, hey Matt, have no audio. Do you? Oh, is there no audio on this? Have you guys been trying to listen to this the whole time and there's no audio the whole time? That'd be terrible. Oh gosh. Okay, somebody reload the page. Yes, that's it. Hi Joe, how's it going? Matt, he sounds like Crocodile Dundee a little. Better than the old boring American voice. Okay. I'm not from Australia, I'm from New Zealand, but I know we do sound, I suppose, to somebody from North America, we might sound very similar. Audio is up, that's good. I'm glad. I was terrified to know that you guys couldn't hear the whole time I was doing that. Marcus, operator error on my end, thank you. No, it's all good. All right, Joe. Hey, Fred, I know you'll really, you'll read chat anyways. Just wanted to let you know that Gold Dragon came in today. Oh, did it? Spent a few hours putting it together. I'm going to need to get some milliput for all of the gaps. Yeah, probably. Although I feel like you'd have to use the fine milliput, rather than the coarse stuff to get into gaps. Otherwise, you've got to resort to doing that liquid green stuff, which I don't know that it's necessarily a fantastic product. It certainly will get into the gaps. You don't have to try to fight with it to try and get it in the gaps, but it really depends, I guess, on how big the gaps are. Sorry, gap. The gaps. Native American minis. They look so good. Just some random video. Speed painting. Do you know, I watched somebody who said they were speed painting the other day, and they had sped up the video. And like, of course that's speed painting. If you speed up the video, you're speed painting. I don't know that I quite buy it myself. Just play the video at normal speed and then be done with it, or just say it's a time-lapse paint rather than a speed paint. Big Kid, how's it going? After last painting vid, I got about half done painting 7 elves. Oh, well done. The last one, that was an hour and a half. It took me a long time. Matt Nerdy, it's inspiring to see somebody else have success. Well, that's good. I'm glad. Big Kid, whatever made sense starting out was you attack with a spell that requires a save DC. I know a lot of people don't like spells that have a save DC. They feel like the attack roll is always better. But what you try to do with a spell that has a save DC is often those spells have a... they either do full damage if they fail or half damage if they succeed. And that's a good thing, because with attack rolls, that spells that use attack rolls, it's you either hit or you miss. So you either do lots of damage or you do no damage. And apart from something like Sacred Flame, which is pretty much, unless you're targeting something with low dexterity, you're probably going to miss, unfortunately. Matt Nerdy, it sure is just for balance. Yeah, I guess so. No, the rogue did not die. He still lives. When you have never played D&D, seeing somebody doing combat and explaining like this is well worth the time. Audio is fine. Okay, so Big Kid, here we go. I'm going to explain to you and everybody else. I don't have a job right now. About just over a year ago, I tried doing something like this, but I did not have the resources. I did not have fiber. I am going to be doing a lot of these now. I might not necessarily do one that includes 4 characters, but I'm going to do a lot of combat tutorials. You can probably expect at least 4 of them throughout the week, so that may be almost like one each day. I'll do some for players and for dungeon masters running their monsters. I'll do some for monster tactics if I can remember. I'll do some on spells. And I'll also do some videos on just general advice and some Dungeons and Dragons product reviews. So that means that tomorrow I'm going to be very busy. I'm going to make a lot of video content. Okay, Chris Chemist, audio is fine. Okay, good. Big Kid, how do you scale encounters with more people, or how do you increase difficulty of the encounter while not making it too hard? I hear terms like action economy, but I don't know how to factor that in. Okay, so first thing is, my advice to you, and I've talked about challenge ratings and so forth. You can use the challenge rating system and how to figure it out. You know, there's apps that allow you to do that. I believe Kobold Fight Club you can use online to figure that sort of stuff out. My advice to you is don't make the encounter more difficult. If you're dealing with new players, let them crush stuff. Just let them bowl through stuff and obliterate things. They're still learning the game. So there's no point from level 1 to about level 4 giving them a hard time, because they are still trying to figure things out. So don't worry about that sort of thing. Okay, that's my advice. So ignore scaling encounters and making them more difficult because you've got more people at the table. Let them just crush those encounters and bowl through things. Once they get a few levels behind them and a bit of experience playing the game, then you can start increasing the difficulty of the encounters very slowly. That's often what I would do, is I would start with very easy encounters and I would increase the difficulty until eventually we get to a point where they're finding it really hard. Now, with new players, I don't normally keep going like that. Normally, if they're sort of still working between working out the rules, I will sort of cap things off. I won't get too carried away. Experienced players, I just keep increasing the difficulty until they get the message that it's time to either flee, run away, or they wind up with their characters carking it. Because at that point, they'll quite likely have access to spells that allow them to raise people from the dead, or characters, not people, characters. You might not be a person if you are playing one of the other races, correct? Yeah, Darren, you are a bit on the late side. I know you're still at work. It's all right. I'm going to be back tomorrow. I'll be doing this sort of thing quite a bit. Chris Chemist, how do you feel about showing players the whole map of an area? I don't do that. I usually won't show them the whole map of an area unless they have scouted it out with an imp, or they have scouted out the location with one of the characters. Then I won't lay it out. Normally I will draw the map very, very quickly on a piece of paper and then just toss it in front of them and then let them decide where they want to go next. I don't normally draw out on a square grid the entire map. I only ever usually draw out just the area they are fighting in. If they are fighting, they might not have decided to fight. They might have decided to do something completely different. So that's normally how I deal with that. And if you've got a map that's already laid out, like so this map, and you want to use a fog of war, just get bits of paper and just blue tag them onto the locations you don't want them to see. Break it up into segments, and then as they explore, you can shift the fog of war, and then just blue tack it down where they can't see. That's probably the easiest way. But I really, and I wouldn't really get too worried about that sort of stuff. It's not a big issue. If people see certain areas, particularly when they're new, it doesn't really matter. The only time it matters is if there is something in that location that's important, and it's important that you hide that information from the players. So just putting it out there. I don't worry about it unless it's really important. Okay, so there don't seem to be too many more questions. As I said, I will be back tomorrow to do more of this sort of thing. Probably not quite as long, so I don't wind up losing my voice. Talking for an hour is a long time. So I'm going to say what I normally say. Thank you to everybody who showed up. Thank you to my Patreons who are supporting me. And I have put up a few more videos for those people who might be interested in that sort of stuff. And I will say my normal outing, and that is have a good night, day, morning, afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are in the world. Look after your family and your friends, and look after yourself. Until next time, keep rolling those 20s.